Okay, so this uncivilized movement number 3, moving or playing on purpose, and we're going to talk about loosening up the wrist joints and maintaining wrist health. So I'm going to write these down, and then we'll go through the motions. So when you're moving your wrist around, we're going to shake. Let me spell shake right. We're going to shake our wrist in the 3 planes. I'll explain that in a moment. We're going to do something called dynamic tension. And then there's going to be the 4 anatomical actions. I don't know if that's a real word. We'll put it there. All right, so let's go through these. It's 8 steps. You can loosen your wrists up. Make sure before you do this you don't have a fracture or a sprain, but this is a good way to get space back into the carpal region of between your forearm and your hand. Sometimes known as your wrist. A lot of times people will grab their distal forearm and say, well, I'm grabbing my wrist. Now, your wrist is actually, there's 2 little knobby ends to the bones in your forearm if you palpate up and feel those little knobby ends. And then there's the metacarpals, the hand bones, and there's a little ring of space that's covered by my thumb and my middle finger. In that little bit of space between those ends of the forearm bones and the base of the hand or the metacarpal, there's a thin little circle that's called your carpus or your wrist. There are 8 bones in there. They're different orientations with the facets and ligaments and such. Makes your wrist a highly mobile joint, and it can be quite stable, but it's prone to a lot of overuse injuries from typing or like working a screwdriver or a mouse. And if we don't loosen our wrists up a lot and keep all that space in there, we can have problems later on. So this is a good way to loosen your wrists up just for health, or before you get down on the floor and do a lot of quadruped or groundwork, or you can do a lot of hanging or heavy lifting. Good way to keep your wrists in shape. So the first thing you want to do is we're going to talk about the 3 planes. We're talking about the sagittal plane, so front to back. We're talking about the frontal plane, kind of like a window pane in front of us, and then the transverse plane, like the top of a desk. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my wrists out in front of me, and then I'm going to flex my wrist, and then I'm just going to shake them, right? Keep them loose while they're flexed. Think about this as being the frontal plane. So I'm just going to shake them loose. Now if I straighten my wrists out and shake them again, this is the sagittal plane. Okay? And I'm just going to kind of loosen them up. I do this for the wrists flexed or straight, maybe 10-20 seconds each, just depends, and just gently, okay, loosening them up. The hand and wrist are loose. Then for the horizontal shaking, I'm putting my hands on a desk and just going to shake them back and forth, kind of like when you're saying, no, don't do it, but you're doing it just at the wrists. Just shake them back and forth like I'm, what's that movie? Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. Okay? So I do those 3 planes, 20 seconds each, takes about a minute. Then we're going to do something called dynamic tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze a fist as hard as I can, and while maintaining the tension in my fists, I'm going to pretend my hand is a flower and it's slowly blooming or opening up. And I'm keeping tension all through my hands. It's kind of hard to explain, but just feeling it. Keeping all the tension, the muscles activated while I open them up, and then relax. Then you can do that a few times opening, and then you can start with your hands wide open and a lot of tension, like you're squeezing and extending all of the joints, and then you slowly squeeze them down into a fist while you keep as much tension in the muscles as you can until they're as tight as can be, and then you relax. So do some shaking and dynamic tension, and now your wrists are ready for the 4 anatomic planes or 4 anatomic actions. The first one we're going to do is flexion. So I'm going to do my right wrist, let my wrist flex, and then I'm going to take my other hand and grab the back of the hand, and I'm going to bring my elbows down as I put some tension through here. Now, not too much. You're not going to hurt yourself, but it is going to be uncomfortable. If you're just doing it like this and it's not uncomfortable, you're not really getting any increase in your range of motion. So you're going to flex that wrist. I do it 5 or 6 times, and I can vary the amount of pressure I put toward the lateral surface of my hand or the medial surface. So it won't flex straight in. I kind of flex toward the thumb or the pinky a little bit. And then I'll do the left. I'm going to do 5 or 6 stretches with moderate amount of intensity to get that flexion. Okay? Now we're going to go, that's been flexed. going to keep my hand flexed, and I'm going to turn my hand so my fingers swing away and my pinky's on top. And then I'm going to grab my right hand with my left thumb on top. Okay? So I just did the flexing, and now I turn my fingers away from me so the pinky's on top, and I grab that hand with my thumb, and then I'm going to rotate like I'm trying to touch my nose with my pinky, like I'm turning a faucet. Okay? And I'm going to twist that wrist up toward me in this direction. Okay? And then I'll do the left, pinky out, grab the top of that hand, come in and twist and loosen that wrist up. Okay? Okay, now I've done that. Now the next direction is going to be extension, so I can stretch and loosen up the flexor portion of my forearm. So I'm going to bring my fingers up, and then I'm just going to press back and try to press my fingers up toward my elbow. And I just stretch. A little more pressure on the pinky and ring fingers, sometimes a little more pressure on the index and middle finger. Don't forget to press that thumb back. And then I just stretch back this way. So you can stretch by bringing your elbows up, and do the other hand. Press those fingers back, get into nice extension. Right, loosen those up. Okay, then we got one more direction to go. So we did the flexion, we did the pronation, and now we did the extension. Now we're going to do a supination. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our palm up. I'm going to reach under my hand, and I'm going to grab around the base of my thumb with my fingers. My other thumb's going to go in the back of that third knuckle, and then I'm going to twist my hand out so my palm is facing away from me. Twist out like this. Do that a few times. Do the other one. And then roll your hands in little circles, maybe little figure eights, and you should be loosened up. So these different wrist exercises are to develop wrist strength and good range of motion, and to keep everything, all the ligaments and tendons loose and supple and moving, so you can do parkour or MoveNat on the ground, quadrupedal things, lifting weights, general wrist health. This, for me, comes from, and there are lots of other ways you can add in some floor stretches and different things, but this comes from martial arts, Hapkido, Samukwan training. A lot of joint locks in Hapkido, so our wrists had to stay in healthy condition, so we would do these exercises at the beginning of each session as part of our warm-up, so we could do the wrist cranks and throws without incurring a lot of injury. 35 years, didn't injure my wrist in practice from the joint locks because I did these faithfully. The other thing to remember is you're working on the actual wrist joint with these. The muscles that extend your wrist and fingers are back here in your forearm, and that flex your fingers and wrists are on the front part of your forearm. So these are the muscles up in your forearm that control your hand and wrist, but the actual joint itself is what you're doing with these exercises. Okay, so to recap, first I'm going to flex my wrist and shake them a little bit, get them in that plane, and then I straighten them out so they're in line with my forearm and shake them a little. And then I shake them side to side like wiping off a countertop. A little dynamic tension, slowly opening and closing with as much tension as you can manage. Get the blood flowing, loosen the muscles up. Then you go around in the 4 directions. You can start any direction you want. Okay? I start with flexion. I loosen that one up. That one's the worst, so we get that one done early. Then we roll pinky up. We get a little hyperpronation, a downward wrist lock. Okay? And then we're going to roll all the way over into extension. Get another finger lock, pushing back, thumb 2. And then we roll over a little further, grab the base of that thumb, and then do like a major hand throw, a hypersupination, and just twist. And then repeat on the other side. You can go back and forth or do one wrist after the other. Whole thing should take you about 3 minutes to warm up, and your wrists will be nice and strong from that allostatic load of that almost strain or sprain-like pressure on those ligaments and tendons. You'll develop very strong and capable wrist for supporting punches, wrist locks, or doing some of your quadrupedal movements. So if you like this move on purpose tidbit about wrist strength, we talked about the hips. We got a few more of those coming. Comment below. Thanks to Shane for this idea. Some other ideas you'd like to see, and we'll stack those in the videos pretty soon. And like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave the comments, share, all the other YouTube shit. Okay, see you later.